right?
Right,
The
guys,
oldest bridge in the Bahamas constructed. Now, before this bridge was actually built, this was used as a two-way street for all vehicular traffic. No, I'm sorry. I got it mixed up. Before this bridge was built, the only way to get to the island, we had to take ferry boats or water taxis, okay? Now, after it was built, it was used as a two-way street. So this was where traffic got to and from the island after the bridge was constructed in the 1960s. Now, the ferry boats are still operational for you guys to actually come over, take to and from the island, okay? Now, if you look over here to the bottom left of you, this little area right here, as you can see, it's a little congested area. That is where all of the supplies are shipped out to the islands that are inhabited by mailboat, okay? So, those islands, those 29 islands, that is where they ship all their supplies out by mailboat, especially those hurricane victims that was destroyed by Hurricane Dorian, okay? Now, whether it be building supplies, medical supplies, or grocery supplies, that is where it's all shipped out. Also, you can see fishing boats to the left and right of you. Those boats go out every day once the weather is good, and they bring back all of the fresh seafood for the public to enjoy. Now, the buildings you see to the left and right of the bridge, these are actually little small eateries where you guys can get all of your local native food from, such as the baked mac and cheese, fried plantain, peas and rice, deep fried cracked conch. And conch is, like I said, a seafood that comes out of the shell. You can also get grilled fish and fried fish down here as well. Now, the other location similar to that one right there, what we just passed, will be located at the fish fry, and we're going to be heading over there shortly. These pretty flowers you see to the left and right of you on these trees, these will be our national flower of the Bahamas, and they are called the yellow elder. Our national bird of the Bahamas will be a pink flamingo, and the national fish of the Bahamas will be a blue marlin, okay? Now, we also have a national sport here in the Bahamas, and it is cricket. Also, the Bahamas has their own currency. So if you guys see any different color money in your travelings, it will be our own currency, and it is equal to the American dollar, which will be 1-to-1, okay guys? The American dollar 1-to-1, our currency is equal to the American dollar. Now, tourism here in the Bahamas will be our #1 and main industry, okay? So we depend on tourism for about 65 cents to 70 cents of every dollar. Now, we do have other industries in the Bahamas, such as fishing, farming, and banking, to help support our economy, but tourism will be the golden goose of the capital, okay? Now, most of the islands normally depend on fishing and farming to support their families, okay? So that's basically, the islands doesn't have many businesses, so they depend on fishing and farming. Now, if they find that they cannot support them, they will come down here to the capital and seek employment and send monies back home to feed their family. Now, last year we had like 6.6 million tourists visiting the Bahamas. 2.2 million of those actually came by the cruise ship, which is very good for our economy moving forward. So I'd like to thank you guys for choosing the Bahamas as one of your vacation destinations. We really appreciate it. Now, the church building coming up to the right-hand side of you was constructed in 1802. So this will make it the oldest church building that we have here in the Bahamas, okay? Now, over time, the building has been modified to keep up with the times, but it has stand there from 1802. Also, if you've noticed that they have their own cemetery, and the cemetery will extend from here all the way back to the other side of the street. Now, to be laid to rest in this cemetery, you will have to be a member of their church, okay? Now, our first Governor General, after we became independent, was actually laid to rest in this cemetery right here because he was a member. Also, over here to the right, this big tall tree behind this fence, that is a silk cotton tree, and that there was planted by one of the slaves back in the 1700s. So the government actually protects that from being cut down at any given time. Now, this vehicle that I'm driving carries the steering wheel to the right-hand side of it, but we do have cars with the steering wheel to the left-hand side of the vehicle as well. And if you look to your left, this is an American-made car dealership. Now, primarily in the Bahamas, we drive in cars with steering wheel to the left-hand side. And we always have to keep on the left-hand side of the streets. Now, it is said that the first car landed here in the Bahamas in 1901. And the reason why we have to drive on the left-hand side of the streets is because we were under the British for many years before we became independent. Now, the Bahamas became an independent country in 1973 on July 10th. All right, so we're 46 years of independence here in the Bahamas, and even though we are independent, we still also recognize the Queen as well. So there are still laws on our books that exist from the British times as well.
Alright, everybody, that's it. Okay.
Now the building that will be coming up to your left-hand side, right ahead of you, will be Doctor's Hospital, and this will be our only major private hospital facility, okay? And this was constructed in 1955. Now, if some of you remember the late Anna Nicole Smith, this is where she had a little girl right here in this hospital facility. And seeing that this is a private hospital, it will require you to leave a $300 down payment or registration fee to access the door right there, okay? That's our only major private hospital that we have here in the Bahamas. Now, behind this fence here to the left of you, this is Centerville House. And Centerville House was formerly called Ralph Collins House, okay? Now, Ralph Collins was actually an American businessman who came to the Bahamas in 1905. Now, this structure right here, this was actually a wooden structure before it was blown and destroyed down by hurricane back in the early 1900s. I think it's somewhere between 1929 and 1930. Now, Ralph Collins decided to rebuild the house in 1931, and this is how he built it. Over time, this has been modified as well. Now, Ralph Collins, when he rebuilt it, it was one of the only houses back then that had infrastructure, lighting, plumbing, and was built out of bricks and reinforced steel. Now, sadly for Ralph Collins, he passed away in 1946. So this house has since been changed into a museum.